Hello again. On this episode, we will be talking about form over function and how detailed they are with organizing your home. For example, are they organizing everything in your pantry? And are they color coordinating your items of clothing in your closets? And then finally, at the end, how do homeowners stay organized? Are they able to? Or do they have to come back and reorganize them again, like a touch-up organization? So stay tuned, take a listen, and don't forget there's a code available for you guys to get a discount. Thank you. Amy, so let's talk about your company.
Great.
Tell us about your company. How did it come about and when did you start?
Okay. So I was an accountant for many years. I went to school to be a CPA and I did that for a number of years. And then when I was trying to have kids, I had a difficult time conceiving. And so that's another story, but I basically stopped working for a time just to concentrate on my fertility journey. And I ended up having 4 children.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I would have 12 more. I'm from a big family. I absolutely love, I wouldn't say I love the chaos. But I do. My house is not chaotic, but I love being surrounded by noise and family and I love kids. I've always loved kids. So once my youngest was in school, I was not working, and another friend and I were helping a third friend get ready for a house renovation. And she had lost her parents at a very young age. She lost her mother in 8th grade and her father not long after. And so she had been carrying all of these mementos and boxes of things that she never ever looked at and had just sort of like stowed away. And so in order to get ready for her home renovation, she had to clear out her attic. And so she was asking us just kind of like shuffle around with her. And we said, no, like this is a really good time to kind of start going through the stuff and just kind of face it. So we helped her come to find out half the stuff that she'd been carrying around in boxes really wasn't even sentimental at all. So we really loved the process of kind of holding her hand through that. And then as her renovation went on, she said, it would be really helpful if you guys would help me put my kitchen back together. And so she sort of made my friend Andy and I realize how much we love doing this for someone else. I've always loved organizing my own stuff, my family's. When I was a kid, I used to always rearrange my furniture. I just always had a knack for like the nitty gritty and making things look and feel efficient. So our friend Katie said, you guys should consider doing this for a business. And that was in October, a little over 5 years ago. And my son was just in preschool, like your son, 9 to 12, very short days. But we said, well, we'd love to do this, at some point. And so word of mouth spread like wildfire. And for the entire rest of that year, which was not very long, we were booked like solidly, the two of us. And then I would say early the next year, my friend who I started my business with, we went down, the whole line of picking a name and creating an actual business, and got so busy that my friend Andy was like, I don't know if I'm like really up for working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it sort of evolved into being just me. And since then I've hired other people. We're a team of about 8. So I have a couple of team leads. And so I work in client spaces as much as possible because I absolutely love it, but I also do all the back end stuff. So I'm doing all of the invoicing and the scheduling and the social media and all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot on the back end. So I have teams that will go in and work without me now, who I trust and love. So we're booked very solidly, usually about 2 months out or so. It varies depending on the time of year. But we do all kinds of organizing. We do any little projects from just, decluttering a playroom or doing linen closet or bathroom to full scale moves where we have had clients say, we're moving. We don't want any part of it. We've overseen the packing. We don't pack ourselves for a number of reasons, but we'll oversee the packing and be there when the movers are there. We'll unbox as much as possible while the movers are still there. And we will do as much or as little as a client wants. We've had clients who have just gone out of town and we have fully unpacked them down to making the beds, soap and towels in the bathroom, the whole 9 yards. But we run the gamut from just doing like a 3-hour project to doing those big, huge moves, and anything in between.
Wow. Kind of makes sense though, that your background is in accounting.
it helps. It definitely helps.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And then when you mentioned that you love the chaos, in my mind, I'm like, of course she loves the chaos because she can make it nice afterwards. So it's not chaos for you. It's like in your mind, you're just like, it's like Tetris or something,
A
you know?
100%. 100%. It is like Tetris. It's funny because we did a pantry the other day and it was an auction item. So the client had purchased our time through an auction. And, it wasn't normally we'll have a big consult and I'll talk to the client about what their goals are and, what their budget is for products and whether they even want to purchase any products or just use what they have. So I was trying to be very budget conscious. I just told her some very basic bins and I had not seen the space in person. And so not knowing, whether she's a cook or whether she, likes to buy in bulk and all these things ahead of time, I was saying that it's like very Tetris-y, trying to make it be beautiful while still using just the bins that she had purchased, which were minimal. And it is kind of a game, but I love it. I love it. It's, like I said, very gratifying and fun. And just makes you feel good.
It frees up so much too, mentally, emotionally, space, like physically, it just frees up a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned something about the client having the bins. So do they normally buy the bins or do you also bring in bins and boxes, organizational items?
That is 100% dependent on the client, the space, and we have a conversation with the client about, what they have in mind. A lot of times clients are not clients. We have people that will reach out to us on Instagram or TikTok or just emailing. And a lot of times people in an effort to get organized will just go to the Container Store and they will just buy willy-nilly, like things that they think are pretty, that don't necessarily fit the depth of their shelves in their pantry properly, or they'll have bought a ton of stuff, but it's kind of mismatched. And we like to use, like, I don't like people spending my money without me knowing. So I like to use what the client has as much as possible where it makes sense. So it's often a combination, but I would say the ideal thing is to have a conversation with the client about what they want their space to look like and how they want it to function. And then usually we'll give them, kind of a ballpark of what we're thinking to buy. We'll run things by them, but I love it when we buy them and they reimburse us because it gives us a flexibility to buy more than we need and have, when it is a little bit of a Tetris situation, we have extra things to pull and then we'll just return what we don't need. But it varies depending on the client. Sometimes people are very budget conscious and they just want to use what they have. And we're totally happy to do that. And sometimes we'll even borrow from other spaces, people will have the same bin in other areas and they're more than happy to let us, borrow from Peter to pay Paul or wherever the saying goes. So
yeah, that makes sense. So do you organize as well as color coordinate? Or is that something completely different?
It's all hand in hand. Sometimes clients don't want things like super rainbowy, but our goal at the end of the day is always, I would say, it's always function over form. But at the end of the day, it's an aesthetic business. And I want to leave things looking beautiful because if they don't look beautiful, you're going to be a lot less motivated to keep it, to maintain whatever system that we put into place. So even if they're not expensive bins, having walking into your pantry and having uniform bins with uniform labeling, it's just calming. And so while the function is the most important thing, I always want to leave things looking beautiful.
I agree.
So I just feel like it's easier to maintain. It's definitely easier to be motivated to maintain it.
So how in detail or in depth do you go when it comes to that? In my mind, so I bought this brand new bookshelf, really cool looking bookshelf. And then in my mind, I was like, what if I take off all the book coverings of every book and then put in my own book coverings, either all white or, rainbow color.
Yeah.
And then I was like, God, this sounds a little much.
Over the top.
Do people actually do that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
There are actually, you can purchase sets of books on Etsy that are not even real books. They are like bindings of classics, and you can buy them by color. You can buy, that is definitely not too over the top for some people. And we respect it. You know, the more, you know, uptight you are about things looking great, we are all for it.
But the crazy part is, Jamie, I was never like this. This just started. This like
Did
OCD
COVID
line.
have
I
any
don't
effect?
know. I have no idea. It's been, I feel like the last almost year, maybe
Yeah.
2 years, I've just wanted things more organized. Like even my own husband's like, wow, your side of the bed is way neater than mine. I'm like, I know. He's like, this is so weird. And then if he leaves his stuff on my side, I'll literally pick it up and throw it on his side and be like, my side's clean. That's
Yes.
your side. Don't put your stuff on my side. But I was never like this. Like I even did a disc assessment. I don't know if you've ever done a disc profile where you check your personality.
I've
So
heard of it, I've not done it.
yeah, so the C portion of the disc are people who are OCD, highly organized, accountants, librarians, you know, these
Sure.
types of people who want to know when, how, why, where, who, and you know, the answers to every question before they do anything. And my level for C was maybe like a -10, if that was even a possibility. Maybe it was like a 3 out of 100. And like, you know, the last year and a half, I think it's gone up some. And I'm like, wow, this is very interesting.
That is interesting. The only thing I'll say about that is sometimes people will have us do like some really random space. And then to your point, you were saying, once you get organized, you realize how calming it is and how effective, you know, it makes your everyday life. It just makes things so much easier when you know where things are. When you're organized, you're less likely to overbuy because you can find what you have, you can see what you have. You're not just buying just in case. And I think that kind of spirals because, you know, we'll do one area for a client. They're like, oh my gosh, you have to come back and do my closet. Like, you know, you do realize the value that you're adding. It's not just, it's the difference between just cleaning up and organizing. Organizing is actually creating a system that's easy to maintain rather than just, oh, I'm going to just, you know, take the expired food out of here and just leave it looking, you know, like a dumpster fire. So
So
it is contagious.
yeah, so then what do you tell clients, you know, once you are done organizing that space or their house, what do you tell them or what do they need to do to maintain it? Because obviously they just spent all this time, all this money, you know, sometimes that linen closet of ours can look like a hot mess, even though it's been organized, but that's
Sure.
the way it goes. So how do you keep people organized, or how can people stay organized after you've gone in and organized them?
That is a very good question. And the answer is that our goal is to leave a system that your 5-year-old could maintain. Like when we do a pantry, for example, not only are we putting in bins and labeling it so that you know when you're unloading the groceries where a certain item should go, we are also like, we always talk about zones. We always have things make sense functionally so that all of the snack foods are together, all of the breakfast items are together, all of the dinner prep items are together. So once you get used to it, it's a no-brainer. My sister's super messy. Admittedly, doesn't care about being organized. Well, she cares about being organized. She doesn't care about organizing. And I, on a whim, did her pantry probably 5 years ago. And it is still to this day, like she'll send me a picture and she'll be like, oh, it's getting out of hand. And then she takes 20 minutes to, you know, remove the packaging, you know, shuffle things around, and the breakfast stuff is still all together. The snack food is all still together. So our goal when we leave is that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to maintain it. It's, you know, makes sense for the way that you live and the way that you grocery shop, et cetera.
So what about when you have folks who have kids? So, you know, I have a preschooler, but I also have middle schooler and a freshman in high school who they're like the Tasmanian devils, just go in and it's a mess. So how do you make sure those types of clients are organized or stay organized. Do you actually have conversations with their kids?
Of
Like,
course.
this is like, oh, really? You do?
Well, we do. But we also like, I feel like we will have conversations with whoever's hiring us. And generally it's the wife, not always, about, you know, some people, we organize to their needs. So if they have kids that are in there helping themselves in the pantry, we make it so that, you know, organizing can be a variety of levels of, you know, it could be very broad. We could have bigger bins that just say snacks. We could have, you know, people do micro organize. If you have little kids that are just having free reign of a pantry, we are not micro organizing. So one bin says peanuts and one bin says almonds, you know, it says nuts. And if it gets rummaged through, it's easy to fix. So I'm not sure if I'm articulating this well, but we definitely organize to your needs. You know, if you don't want your kids, you know, eating chocolate and Cheez-It, or not Cheez-Its is pretty neutral. I don't know, Doritos, if you don't want them helping themselves to things that are messy or things that are like less healthy, we take that into consideration. We don't put that low. So, you know, things still need to be maintained. It's almost like we're a personal trainer and we're getting you into shape, but you still need to put the groceries away where they're meant to be. You still need to not shovel in junk food if you want to maintain your weight loss. We just give you the tools to make it easy to maintain, if that makes sense. So, you know, if your kids are crazy, your kids are crazy. We can't make them not be crazy. But we can, you know, organize in a way that makes the things that they want more accessible so that they're not messing up the whole pantry to get their snacks, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. Okay.
If I could add one thing, sorry, I have 4 kids and they range in age from 8 to 17. I have 3 boys and 1 girl, and their personalities are so different. Their ages are very different. So, you know, I'm a real mom who, you know, lives in my house gets messy, and I do have to go behind them and nag them.
Does that stress you out when you have to organize your own, or is that peaceful for you to do?
It is just like my personality to be maintaining like the nitty gritty in my house. I love it. I don't mind it at all. I'm always going behind my kids, and I mean, I do hold them accountable because they're not that little anymore. But the everyday stuff, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know how, it's my personality. I don't know how else to live. However, when I am doing something bigger, i.e. like reorganizing my storage room, which I did recently, when it gets to like, you know, a big space like that, that does get stressful. And I see why we're in business because, or even like my children's closets, like if I start taking everything out, when you start doing things in your own house, you realize that a big organizing project, one thing leads to another. Like when I was organizing my kids, or my storage room rather, I have bins in there of hand-me-down clothes. And so as I'm taking things out, I'm realizing, okay, well, this needs to go in my kid's closet. Well, then that leads to me having to organize my kid's closet to make room for these things that I'm finding that should be now in the rotation. So bigger things, definitely, it's as stressful for me as anyone else, but on a daily basis, I love just kind of tinkering and.
So then who helps maintain you? Since you maintain everyone, who's maintaining you?
Well, I'm so uptight. Nobody has to.
Nobody has to. I ask these questions to like my friends that are therapists. I'm like, so you're the therapist. Who's your therapist? Like, is there like a...
That's a good question. Well, my husband is neat, but also I feel like because being organized is so physical and you can't ignore it being organized. I'm the type that will not go to bed. If I come home from a trip, and thankfully my husband is the same way, if we get home at like 1 a.m, we are unpacking the car. I am like taking dirty clothes out of the suitcase and running a load of laundry.
So you guys are perfect for each other then.
Yes, I would murder him if he were like crazy messy. It would not work. So
you mentioned something earlier where you said we were talking about maintenance. Do you guys go back to do maintenance? Is there like a package or is this part of your service where you just come back for the first 6 months or whatever? Or is it an extra fee for you to come back for maintenance?
So our we charge very, very simply. We charge by the hour, whether we're doing a huge move or just like a tiny, tiny project. So we definitely will have clients. Generally what will happen is we'll have a client invite us back to do another space, and they'll say, hey, while you're here, can you just kind of like tighten up the pantry, or can you just, go through my children's closet and, you know, now they're in a size 10, they were in a size 8. Can you just pull the things out that don't fit? So it is a separate service. It's not like part of a package, but we definitely do that for clients. And there's absolutely no shame in things getting messy, you know,
all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
How often do you have to go back to organize the same person?
I would say very rarely the same space.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm saying that genuinely. Like my sister, I would have never thought she would have kept her pantry up. She has 4 children as well. And yeah, I feel like we pride ourselves on having systems that are easy for you to kind of live with. So usually it's more areas where, like I said, like with clothing, where things are inevitably coming in and out, and kids are outgrowing things. We'll do that seasonally. But generally like under the sink, cleaning closets, things like that are pretty straightforward. We're not going in, we're not organizing it and then coming back and finding huge mess. And we don't do social service checks, but we do. If a client has us back, we'll be like, can we just peek and see how your garage is looking? And 99% of the time we are very, very pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that storage is one of your least favorite spaces, or like most anxiety for yourself?
Only for myself, because those are the type of areas that are so easy, even me, they're so easy to just shove stuff away. Like we just have a little closet in our basement that has a couple of racks in it. It's where we keep our seasonal things, like holiday decorations and some entertaining stuff that we don't use all the time. And my kids will root through our Halloween costumes and I just don't see it until I go in there and, you know, look for something when I'm hosting. So I feel like areas like that are not as everyday, even for an organized person, those areas are so easy just to like shove things in and close the door and forget about it. So
then what's your favorite space?
My favorite, that's a great question. I love doing pantries because that is like the heart of the home. Pantries and kitchens in general. I feel like that we spend so much time there. So that has the most bang for your buck. I feel like having your kitchen be organized, you know, you're just in it all the time. And I find that when people move, they just shove stuff away, and we'll come organize a kitchen and people will be like, oh my gosh, it never even occurred to me to put that there. But when we do it and, you know, we're professionals, we will take into consideration, you know, where's your dishwasher? Where should your silverware be in relation to that? Do you cook a lot? You know, do you want to have your oil and vinegar right next to the stove because that's where you're using it? You know, like we look at it from a functional standpoint. So I feel like that's probably the most gratifying is a kitchen or pantry. I love doing closets, especially a primary closet. I love making that look nice. And because the smallest amount of effort can make such a difference. Like we always say, swapping out hangers will make you feel like you got a whole new wardrobe if you have like a mishmash of, you know, crazy hangers. So that's always really gratifying. So those are definitely my top 2, but my very favorite thing is doing a move-in. That's my absolute favorite job, is when someone is moving into a new space and they have us come in with the movers and unpack the kitchen in the high traffic areas, because then we're starting from scratch rather than sort of undoing, you know, whatever somebody's done that's not working. We can just go in and it's like a clean slate.
And how long does that normally take? I know obviously moving into a condo is going to be shorter in time.
Sure.
Maybe it's not, I don't know, versus a single family home. What's the average time that it would take for you to unpack, let's say, a kitchen?
A kitchen is probably, I would say, safely 4 to 6 hours. And that's, you know, unboxing things as the mover. So like the unpackaging of the you know, the moving boxes does factor in that it takes a long time, you know, to get things unboxed, but it's worth being there when the movers are doing that, so that we're, again, not undoing, you know, what movers have shoved away and trying to like make a puzzle of it. So I would say like 4 to 6 hours for standard.
Okay. And then one last question, since we're talking about the pantry. So do you recommend putting like every single spice in its own container with a label, or do you not care if one spice is from that company and another spice is from this company with a different bottle, or do they all have to be in uniform bottles with tags that you
again, and I know I hate to have these generic answers, but it totally depends on the client. Like it's sort of in line with decanting. Like there are people who want their pantry to look like the Home Edit, and they want things in clear, glass jars, beautifully labeled. And that's great for some people, but then there are people who they don't buy the same thing twice, or they just don't go through food enough to keep it fresh doing that. And it just really doesn't make sense. Things go stale. So with the spices, if I had my druthers, of course I would love to have, a set of glass labeled containers that are all the same, but everybody's different. And, if that's not how you grocery shop, then we'll do our best, with what you have, and that's fine.
So what's the alternative if they don't want to put it in the glass containers with their own labels? Do you just have it where in like height, size, or like, is it alphabetical order, like from most used to not? Like, how do you organize it if you're not using your own?
Yeah, if we're not making, well, generally that stuff is in a cabinet, so it's not as important as to look gorgeous as it would be if it were in a beautifully organized pantry. But again, usually it's function. If we can't make it look perfect and uniform, our goal will always be to make it work for the way you cook. So you generally will put the cooking spices together and then the baking spices separate, like cloves, ginger, cinnamon, that kind of stuff. And then have the pepper that you're grabbing. Everyday spices will be, the most accessible. So it depends on the person, but generally, if it's not going to be completely uniform, then function over fashion.
Okay, so I've taken a lot of your time. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I just wanted to add that when it comes to our real estate services, like I said, we do everything. Okay. But when it comes to our real estate services and people hiring us to stage, a lot of times a realtor will convince the client to hire us to, make the closets look big and the kitchen look functional. And some people will just come in and start shoving things away out of sight just for the purpose of the real estate photos for the listing. And we do not do that. If we are coming in to help you stage because you're selling your house, we will take that time to actually get rid of things that you're not using. We will talk you through, what you don't really care about having in your new house. Like, we want to make sure that we are a value add to the actual moving process, meaning that we're not going to just, put things in the basement and make the upper floor of your house look nice. We are going to actually, if we're taking things out of a closet to make the closet look bigger, we're going to pack it up so that it's ready for you to take when you actually sell your house. We want to help you think about how you're going to live in the next house. And if it's not sentimental, functional, and being used now, you might as well get rid of it. So, it's expensive to have us in. And so we're always cognizant of your budget and, your goals for, what stage you are in your life. So I just wanted to add that if we're doing real estate services, we're always cognizant of how we can make our services useful for the entire process and not just for the little need that we're filling at the time, if that makes sense.
No, makes perfect sense. Well, this has been such a delight talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
Much. Do you want to let everybody know where they can find you? Maybe your Instagram page, if you want to just make a shout out for yourself.
Sure. I would love to plug myself. So if you want to get in touch and get on our books, I would say go to our website, which is just GoodOrderDC.com. And there you'll find our contact form where you can fill out what you're looking to have done. If you want to follow me for fun tips and tricks, my Instagram account is also GoodOrderDC. And 5 years or so ago, I started just posting before and afters, and people love that. But I feel like during COVID, people started really focusing on how they could improve their house themselves since they had more time. So my Instagram has really evolved into trying to provide useful tips and tricks that are very tangible for the viewer to just, use at home to make their everyday life more functional. So definitely follow us there for pretty before and afters, but also follow us there for tips and tricks that you can apply to your everyday life and keeping your own house organized.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Jamie.
It was so nice to meet you. Reach out anytime. I love chatting.
I will. Definitely. I will.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You have a great day.
You too.